Have you ever felt like a bone-deep, overwhelming exhaustion that a good night's sleep just can't fix? You wake up after 8, maybe 9 solid hours, and yet the very thought of stepping out your front door just feels impossible.
Oh, yeah. Like moving through molasses.
Right, or answering a simple text message, or even just having a casual conversation with a neighbor. It feels like trying to run a marathon underwater. You aren't physically sick, but your entire system is just screaming at you to stop.
It's a very specific kind of tiredness.
It really is. But what if that feeling isn't laziness at all? What if it's, a distress signal from your very soul? So today we are taking a deep dive into the frameworks of depth psychology. We are looking specifically at the chronological journey of the psyche.
Which is fascinating.
It is. Our mission today is to figure out why stepping away from the world, literally disappearing for a while, might just be the ultimate act of self-preservation.
And psychological transformation, too, because it is a profound distinction to make and one that we almost entirely ignore in modern society, honestly. We are so conditioned to treat exhaustion as this purely physical deficit.
Oh, totally. Just drink more coffee, right?
Exactly. If you are tired, the world tells you to cure it with caffeine or a weekend nap, maybe a quick vacation if you're lucky. But what we are talking about today is a severe psychological depletion. It is an exhaustion of identity.
Wow, exhaustion of identity.
Yeah, you are not physically tired of moving your body. You are psychologically exhausted from being who you are in the world.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I think everyone listening has felt this at some point. I like to treat the mind like a smartphone to ground this concept. When you have too many apps running in the background?
Oh, absolutely. The battery just tanks.
Right. You've got your GPS constantly pinging your location, social media refreshing data every 2 seconds, like 3 different email accounts syncing. You aren't actively using the phone. It is just sitting in your pocket looking completely idle.
But the battery is draining rapidly.
Exactly. It drains to absolutely zero because of all that constant invisible background processing.
What's fascinating here is that the smartphone analogy is perfectly aligned with how our psychic energy operates. But we can actually take it a step further to understand the mechanics of it. It isn't just a drained battery.
What is it then?
Well, when you are running all those psychological apps in the background, like maintaining an ultra-competent persona for your boss, or being the perpetual emotional anchor for your friends.
Or curating an acceptable image for society.
Yes, exactly. You are spreading your psychic energy so thin that the core operating system starts to fail. It is a fundamental loss of identity caused by our modern era of constant availability. We are dealing with so much emotional stimulation.
So you aren't just tired.
No, you are profoundly disconnected from who you actually are.
And that disconnection is the inciting incident, right? That is the exact moment the distress signal goes off and initiates this whole psychological journey.
That's right.
But the first hurdle is how we interpret that signal. Because society has a very rigid, productivity-obsessed lens.
Oh, it really does.
When you start pulling away or you stop answering messages immediately, people talk. Or you decline invitations because you just can't bear the thought of small talk.
Society mislabels this profound mental exhaustion as mere laziness or flaky behavior or, even being antisocial. We immediately pathologize the need for space.
We really do.
However, through the lens of foundational depth psychology, specifically the theories developed by Carl Jung, this exhaustion is actually a highly intelligent biological and psychological signal.
Meaning what exactly?
It means the mind, the soul, and the identity are entirely overwhelmed. Think about the mechanics of attention. Being constantly available to the external world inevitably means your attention is entirely directed outward.
Which means there's nothing left for the inside.
Precisely. Therefore, you are completely unavailable to your internal world. You literally lose the thread of your own thoughts because they are constantly being overwritten by external demands.
I hear that, but I have to stop you there and push back on behalf of the listener. Because a lot of people might be thinking, well, wait, if you just step away from the noise and the pressure, aren't you just running away?
That is a common fear, yes.
Right, like if you just stop showing up to your life, aren't you just escaping your problems? Clinically speaking, how do you differentiate between a healthy, necessary withdrawal and actual clinical depression? Or agoraphobia? Where is the exact line between healing in a den and just giving up on life?
It raises an important question, and it is the exact trap most people, and honestly even some clinicians, fall into.
Really?
Oh yeah. From the outside, the behaviors might look identical, staying home, sleeping more, avoiding social contact, but the internal subjective experience, the actual mechanism of what is happening, is entirely different.
How so?
We confuse withdrawal with retreat. Clinical depression is characterized by a pathological loss of vitality. It is a crushing numbness where you cannot find meaning anywhere.
It looked like a void.
Yes. The withdrawal we are talking about, however, is an active redirection of vitality.
An active redirection? What do you mean by that?
You aren't losing your energy. You are instinctively clawing it back from the external world so you can use it internally. Inner withdrawal is absolutely not about escaping life.
It's about preserving it.
Exactly. It is a necessary protective mechanism to finally hear your own mind again. Think of an animal that is wounded in the wild. It doesn't stay out in the open to be picked apart by predators or the elements.
It retreats to a den to heal.
Right. It consolidates its biological resources. You aren't being cold to the world when you step back. You are shutting down the external inputs so you can reboot the internal system.
It is an act of extreme courage, honestly, to face yourself rather than continually distracting yourself with other people's problems.
It truly is.
Okay, when you frame it as consolidating resources, that makes a lot of sense. It isn't a collapse, it's a purposeful hibernation. So let's walk through the chronological journey.
Okay, let's do it.
You heed the call, you cancel the plan, you put the phone on Do Not Disturb, take the weekend or maybe an entire season of your life to just withdraw. Now, human nature being what it is, you expect immediate peace.
You really do.
You expect to sit on your couch, sip some chamomile tea, and feel this wave of zen wash over you because you finally stopped running.
Yeah.
But that is absolutely not what happens.
No, it is decidedly not.
Not even a little bit.
The immediate aftermath of stepping away is rarely peaceful. In fact, it is usually incredibly jarring and anxiety-inducing because once you withdraw, you enter an uncomfortable, heavy silence.
So loud.
Yes. And in that silence, without the constant external noise and emotional stimulation acting as a buffer, you are forced into self-inquiry.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because the silence isn't actually silent. Let's go back to analogies.
I love a good analogy.
It's like driving a car with the radio blasting for years. You were just cruising along, the music is loud, the bass is thumping, everything feels perfectly fine.
Ignorance is bliss.
Right. And then the day you finally turn the music off, the day you step away from the noise of the world, you suddenly hear all the weird, concerning engine noises you've been ignoring.
All the grinding gears.
Yeah, the rattling, the failing brakes. You didn't fix the car by turning off the radio. You just finally made yourself aware of how broken it is.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it, and we can push that analogy even further. Those concerning engine noises are what Jungian psychology refers to as the shadow.
The shadow.
And the shadow isn't just the rattling engine. The shadow is the angry mechanic you locked in the trunk years ago who is now banging to get out.
Oh, wow. The angry mechanic in the trunk. That is an intense visual.
It is, but it's accurate. When you strip away the distractions of daily life, you are forced to meet the unconscious parts of yourself that you've been ignoring, repressing, or denying.
Let's define the mechanics of the shadow for a second. Assuming most of us know the basic concept, but maybe not how it operates in the specific silence. It's not just evil thoughts, right?
Correct. A psychology-literate audience often misinterprets the shadow as just malice or trauma.
Like the darkest parts of humanity.
Right. But the shadow contains everything you deem unacceptable about yourself based on societal or familial conditioning. Yes, it is your repressed anger and your hidden insecurities.
In the ways you've compromised your boundaries just to be liked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it is also your unacknowledged desires, your unlived passions, and your raw, untamed potential. It is simply the unlit part of the psyche. And the mechanism of why silence brings it out is fascinating.
Because there's no external stimuli to block it.
Exactly. Our brains use external stimuli as an active inhibitor. So scrolling on our phones, chatting at parties, constantly working, it suppresses the unconscious material from bubbling up.
And without that inhibitor.
Without the noise, the unconscious backlog floods into your conscious mind.
And facing that backlog is terrifying. It's no wonder we keep the radio on it. I mean, let's make this concrete.
Sure.
This means sitting alone in a room and suddenly realizing, wow, I'm actually deeply resentful of my career.
Yeah.
Like, I don't love it. I just like the prestige it gives me in the eyes of my parents.
Or realizing you only maintain a certain 10-year friendship because you are fundamentally terrified of being alone.
Yes, it is deeply frightening.
But strictly necessary for psychological truth. This confrontation with the shadow changes everything because it strips away your illusions. It forces a confrontation with reality.
You can't unsee it once the radio is off.
You really can't. You can no longer blame your boss for your stress, your partner for your unhappiness, or society for your anxiety.
Because in the stark silence of your isolation, you see your own complicity in your suffering.
Exactly. You see exactly how you built the cage you were trapped in.
You see how you've been abandoning yourself.
Yes. And once you see that mechanism clearly, you cannot go back. That is why this phase is so extraordinarily difficult.
It's not a vacation.
Not at all. You aren't just resting, you are mourning the loss of your illusions. You are grieving the comforting lies you told yourself while you were too busy and exhausted to know any better.
Okay, so logically, we have to move to the next phase of the journey. I've sat in the silence. I've faced the ugly truths of my shadow. I see my own complicity.
Right.
But I can't stay in my living room forever. I eventually have to exist in the world again. So what happens when this newly stripped down, highly aware version of me has to text my friends back? This internal shift has to create some kind of external friction.
Oh, it creates massive external friction.
I can imagine.
As you face your own inner truths and start to change your behavior, the reality of your external relationships is inevitably exposed. This is often the most painful turning point of the entire process.
Why is it the most painful?
Because as you maintain your distance, a harsh truth is revealed. Your absence exposes the people who only ever valued your availability, not your actual authentic self.
Oh man, that is a gut punch. The people who only valued your availability.
Yes. Let's look at the mechanics of interpersonal projection here.
Okay.
When you were functioning as that drained smartphone, constantly running apps for everyone else, you were highly useful. You were convenient.
You were a mirror that reflected back exactly what they wanted to see.
Precisely. But when you establish a boundary, when you disappear to protect your energy, the people who are feeding off that energy often get incredibly angry.
They call you selfish.
They accuse you of changing.
Because you broke the unspoken contract. The contract was, I will be endlessly accommodating, I will suppress my own needs, and in return, you will give me validation.
Exactly.
And suddenly you stop being accommodating. So you're watching your phone, and instead of people checking in to say, hey, are you okay? I noticed you pulled back and I'm worried about you.
They are deeply annoyed that you aren't providing the service of your friendship the way you used to.
Yes. And the psychological mechanism behind their anger is projection, right?
Precisely. They aren't just mad at you. Your new boundary threatens their own psyche. By refusing to play the people-pleasing role, you are forcing them to face their own lack of boundaries, their own dependencies.
You become a mirror reflecting their shadow back at them.
And humans will fight tooth and nail to avoid looking at their own shadow.
That makes total sense. They aren't mad at me. They are mad that I took away their buffer. But this brings up a huge realization for a person withdrawing.
Which is?
Nobody is coming to save you. You realize that you have to stop trying to save relationships that drain you.
Indeed. A crucial psychological rule of thumb emerges during this phase of the journey. The more you heal, the less you tolerate.
The more you heal, the less you tolerate.
Wow.
That is a sentence you could just chew on for days.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, on behalf of the listener, who is right in the middle of this incredibly painful filtering process. They're looking at their shrinking social circle. So what does this all mean? Do you just become a cynic? Do you become a gifted loner who sees too much, understands the mechanics of projection, and just has no friends?
It can certainly feel that way at first.
Do you just walk around with this rare awareness, totally isolated from humanity, because you can see through all the superficial social dynamics?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it might temporarily feel that way, but isolation is emphatically not the end state. This phase acts as a necessary filter. Think of it as clearing the social slate.
Like tearing it down to the studs.
Exactly. If you build a house on a rotten foundation, eventually you have to tear it down to rebuild it properly. The relational fallout you experience when you step away is simply the rotten wood falling away.
So it's not a failure of friendship, it's just structural integrity.
That's a great way to put it. True healing demands strict boundaries. Carrying this rare kind of awareness might mean having fewer friends temporarily, but it radically protects your energy for genuine connections later.
So it's not about being alone forever. It's about making space for people who actually want to be in the room with you.
Yes. Not just the convenient persona you constructed to please them.
It hurts, though.
It hurts immensely, because humans are biologically wired for connection and tribal belonging. But belonging to a tribe that requires you to constantly abandon yourself is a far worse, far more psychologically damaging fate than temporary isolation.
Which logically brings us to the ultimate resolution of this entire chronological journey. You've felt the exhaustion, you've pulled back, you've sat in the uncomfortable silence, you've met the shadow, and you've weathered the storm as your superficial relationships fell away.
You've survived the fire.
Exactly. So what is the reward at the end of all this? What is the goal?
The end goal of this disappearance, in-depth psychology, is a concept known as individuation.
Individuation.
Individuation is not about becoming fiercely individualistic, selfish, or antisocial. It is the process of becoming undivided.
Undivided, unfragmented, no longer split into all those different apps running in the background.
Exactly. It is the synthesis of your conscious life and your unconscious truths. It is the process of awakening the most authentic version of who you are.
So it all comes together.
You integrate the shadow, you let go of the false persona, and you emerge as a whole, cohesive human being. It is the beginning of becoming who you were always meant to be before the world told you who you had to be.
Let's make this tangible for the listener, because synthesis of the conscious and unconscious can sound a bit like textbook jargon.
Fair enough.
What does an individuated person actually look like on a random Tuesday afternoon? What is the practical difference in their life?
Let's use the example of a demanding workplace or a toxic boss.
Oh, everyone has had one of those.
Right. An unindividuated person, someone still running all those background apps, will say yes to an unreasonable request. They will smile, take on the extra work, and then simmer with deep, unconscious resentment.
And that resentment is their shadow.
Yes, and it will eventually leak out as burnout, passive aggression, or exhaustion.
Because they are divided. Their conscious action says yes, but their unconscious truth says no.
Precisely. Now, an individuated person in that exact same scenario has integrated their shadow. They know their limits, they know their worth, and they aren't afraid of temporary social friction.
So they just say no.
They will look at the boss and calmly say, I cannot take this on right now, without a shred of guilt and without any underlying anger. They are cohesive.
Their internal truth matches their external action.
Exactly. They don't have to disappear anymore because they aren't abandoning themselves in the first place.
That is just incredible. It reframes the entire narrative. Disappearing isn't a tragic end to your social life. It's a beautiful, triumphant beginning to your real life.
It truly is.
It's like you aren't losing your world. You're finally building a world that actually fits you.
And this is exactly why applying this knowledge, understanding these psychological mechanisms, is so absolutely vital right now. It is how you survive the modern world's information overload and relentless societal pressures.
Because the world will endlessly demand your attention.
The only defense is a deeply integrated, individuated sense of self. When you are undivided, you can engage with the world without being consumed by it.
You can be present.
Yes, but you are permanently anchored in your own psychological truth.
So you can drive the car with the radio on again, but this time you know the engine is sound.
And the mechanic is out of the trunk and sitting in the passenger seat helping you navigate.
I love that. You aren't ignoring the noises anymore.
Precisely. You've done the deep maintenance.
So let's bring this all together for everyone listening. If we trace this psychological journey back from the beginning, it starts with recognizing that your profound, bone-deep exhaustion isn't a character flaw or laziness.
Right. It is a vital, intelligent distress signal from a system that is overloaded.
And instead of masking that exhaustion with quick fixes, you grant yourself the grace to withdraw. You brave the incredibly jarring, uncomfortable silence.
You face the frightening but strictly necessary truths of your shadow, and you allow the false relationships to organically fall away as your boundaries solidify.
All of which leads to individuation, becoming undivided, whole, and deeply connected with your true self.
Which is the whole point.
Exactly. And why this matters, why you should care about this today, is that in a world demanding constant emotional stimulation and endless availability, giving yourself permission to disappear isn't a failure. It is the strongest, most courageous thing you can do for your mental health.
It is the ultimate reclamation of your own life and your own energy.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something to chew on. The next time you feel an overwhelming, guilt-inducing urge to cancel your plans and just be alone, what if you didn't apologize for it?
A radical thought.
What if you viewed that urge not as a failure to be social, but as the first vital step in your own psychological awakening? And if individuation strips away the masks we wear to keep society running smoothly, what would happen if we all did this?
That is the big question.
Right, if everyone listening took the time to truly integrate their shadow and stop performing, would our current society collapse? Or would we finally build a world based on reality rather than convenient fictions? When the noise finally stops, what version of you is waiting to be heard in that silence?